Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. I'm sitting here in what used to be our favorite coffee shop, the one with the dim lights and the slightly too bitter espresso. It's funny how a place can change without moving a single chair, just because the person sitting across from you isn't who you thought they were. I'm shaking, and it's not from the caffeine. It's anger, pure and raw, churning inside me like a storm. You see, I always thought Alex and I were solid, unbreakable. But here I am, nursing a coffee that's gone cold 30 minutes ago, trying to piece together where it all went wrong. I'm just going to say it. I'd rehearsed in my head on my way here. I know about you and them. But now, the words are like lead in my mouth, heavy and impossible to spit out. The thing is, betrayal doesn't just break your heart. It messes with your head. You start to question every laugh, every late night, every "I love you" whispered in the dark. Was it all a lie? The doubt is a virus, and it's eating me alive. I can't do this anymore, Alex, I finally managed to say, the words cutting the air between us, sharp and definitive. I expect anger, tears, denials even. But what I get is silence, a quiet so loud it's deafening. You might think I wanted revenge right then and there, to make Alex feel the pain I was feeling. And you'd be right. But it wasn't just about hurting them. It was about regaining some semblance of control, about not letting this betrayal be the end of me. You don't have to say anything, Alex says after a moment that feels like an eternity. I know you know. And just like that, the storm inside me turns into a hurricane. It's not just the affair. It's the realization that the person I trusted most in the world could look me in the eyes and lie. That realization stings more than the betrayal itself. And in that moment, I make a decision. This isn't going to be a chapter in my life where I play the victim. No, I'm going to write my own ending to this story. So, dear reader, as I sit here in this coffee shop that no longer feels like ours, I want you to know that this is not a tale of forgiveness and moving on. It's a confession of the dark thoughts that betrayal can birth in the heart of the wronged. It's an admission that, while revenge might not make me the better person, it's the path I've chosen to walk. And as I plot my next move, the storm inside me rages on, but with a purpose. Let me paint you a picture of the quiet before the storm, the kind of silence that screams louder than any words ever could. I had this gut feeling, that gnawing sense something was off with Alex. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepares you for the moment your world crumbles. It wasn't a confrontation, not the dramatic showdown you might expect. No, it was the eerie silence of our home, a place once filled with laughter and warmth, now a mausoleum to our dying love. I'm working late tonight. Don't wait up, Alex texted. Simple words, innocent to anyone else, but to me, a declaration of war. It's funny, in a cruel sort of way, how a few words can shatter the illusion of a happy life. I remember sitting in our dimly lit living room, the shadows playing tricks on my eyes, or maybe it was my mind, already racing with the possibilities. That night, I couldn't shake the image of Alex, not with me, but with someone else. The thought consumed me, a slow-burning fuse leading to an explosion of wrath and retribution. You see, I had started to put the pieces together, collecting evidence like a detective in a noir film. Receipts, unexplained expenses, sudden changes in routine. All signs pointing to one undeniable truth: Alex was having an affair. And then, the silence in our home that night spoke volumes. It was as if the walls, the furniture, every inch of space between us screamed the truth I was too afraid to admit. But admit it, I did, to myself in the deafening quiet. This is it, I whispered into the void, the end of us. But don't think I was just a victim in this twisted tale. No, that revelation, it ignited something within me. A resolve, cold and sharp as a blade. I wasn't going to be the jilted lover, wallowing in self-pity. No, I would be the architect of a meticulously crafted vengeance. Alex might have thought they were clever, sneaking around, but they had no idea who they were truly dealing with. I planned, calculated every move with a precision that would make any strategist proud. The silence of our home that night was not just the backdrop to my pain, but the crucible in which my plan for retribution was forged. Every moment of quiet, every second of solitude was spent envisioning the downfall of the person I once loved. Is everything okay? Alex's voice, breaking the silence one evening, feigned concern masking the guilt. Everything's fine, I replied, the lie tasting like venom on my tongue. But it was necessary, part of the game. And I had become a master player. That night, the silence was not just a lack of sound. It was a battlefield, and I was laying the groundwork for a war Alex never saw coming. You ever feel like you're watching your own life fall apart, piece by piece, and there's nothing you can do to stop it? That's where I was, stuck in this relentless cycle of pain and betrayal, courtesy of Alex. But here's the thing. I wasn't just going to roll over and play dead. No, my heart might have been lamenting, but my mind? It was sharper than ever, plotting, planning every step of my revenge. I can't do this anymore, Alex, I finally said one evening, the weight of my words heavy in the air between us. It wasn't a declaration of surrender, but the opening salvo of my counterattack. What do you mean? Alex replied, feigning ignorance. But the cracks in their facade were showing, wide and clear. This charade we're living. It's over, I stated, each word meticulously chosen, designed to cut through the lies. You see, by this point, I had gathered enough evidence to bury Alex. But that wasn't enough for me. No, I wanted them to feel a fraction of the pain they had inflicted on me, to understand the depth of their betrayal. So I started to isolate Alex, subtly at first. A whispered suggestion here, a small lie there, sowing discord and mistrust in their friendships, their job, every aspect of their life. It was a slow poison, and I was patient, oh so patient. You're being paranoid, Alex would claim, as they noticed their world shrinking. You're imagining things. But I wasn't. Every move was calculated, every action deliberate. I was dismantling their life, piece by piece, just as they had done to mine. The conflict wasn't just between us anymore. It was within Alex, as they struggled to grasp the unraveling threads of their existence. And me? I watched, a silent observer to the chaos I had orchestrated. You don't have to do this, Alex pleaded one night, desperation creeping into their voice as they began to see the extent of my retribution. Do what, Alex? Expose you for who you really are? Or should I say, who you really were to me? My reply was cold, devoid of the love that once bound us. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my self-respect. Alex needed to understand the consequences of their actions, to feel the isolation, the betrayal, the pain. As I lay awake at night, plotting my next move, I realized this was no longer the person I married staring back at me in the mirror. I had transformed, become something else entirely, a man consumed by vengeance, yes, but also one awakened to the harsh realities of love and betrayal. The silence that followed our conversations was no longer filled with sorrow but with the anticipation of the next move in this twisted game we were playing. And as dawn broke, signaling the start of another day in this war of hearts, I knew one thing for certain: there would be no turning back. You think you know the depths of your own heart, the limits to which you can be pushed before it breaks or fights back. But, trust me, you never truly know until you're staring down the barrel of betrayal, with the person you gave everything to holding the gun. That's where I found myself, on a path I never imagined I'd walk. The path wasn't just about getting even. It was about reclaiming a piece of myself that Alex tried to steal. I've been thinking, I started, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. It was time to set the stage, to let Alex know the game had changed. Maybe we've been going about this all wrong. Alex's eyes narrowed, a flicker of uncertainty passing through them. What do you mean? Us, I said, emphasizing the word as if it were a sentence in itself. This dance we've been doing, avoiding the truth. It's time we faced it head on. You see, by now, I had crafted my plan, a meticulous blueprint of retribution. It wasn't enough to simply expose Alex's infidelity. I needed them to experience the same isolation, the same devastating loss that I had felt. But it had to be more than just an emotional blow. It needed to be a strike that would resonate in every aspect of their life. How do you want to face it? Alex asked, their voice unsteady, betraying a hint of the panic that was starting to take root. With honesty. Complete and utter honesty, I replied, my voice steady, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging inside me. It's time we both laid our cards on the table, don't you think? The plan involved not just exposing Alex's betrayal, but doing so in a way that would leave them utterly alone, a pariah in their own meticulously constructed social circle. I had already begun the groundwork, planting seeds of doubt among our friends, subtly altering the narrative of our marriage's demise to paint Alex not as the victim, but as the villain. You're scaring me, Alex admitted, a vulnerability in their admission that almost made me feel pity. Almost. Good, was all I said. Because fear was a tool, and I was learning to wield it with precision. As the days passed, I watched as Alex's world began to crumble. Friends began to distance themselves, whispers started to circulate, and Alex's confident facade began to crack. But the true masterpiece of my plan was yet to come. I don't understand why everyone is turning against me, Alex confessed one night, a tremble in their voice. It's like you've waged a war against me. Not against you, Alex, I corrected, a coldness in my voice that made even me shiver. Against the lie we've been living. You chose your side the moment you decided to step out of our marriage. Now, you're just feeling the consequences. The silence that followed was deafening, a stark reminder of the chasm that had grown between us. But in that silence, there was also a sense of clarity. I was no longer the man who had been blindsided by betrayal. I was the architect of retribution, shaping the outcome of my own narrative. And as I lay out the next steps of my plan, watching as Alex struggled to navigate the minefield I had laid out for them, I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. This was the path to retribution, and though it was dark and twisted, it was mine to walk. The horizon always seemed to me like a promise, a line where sky and earth meet but never truly touch. I found myself chasing that horizon, desperate for a new beginning, a fresh start away from the wreckage Alex left in their wake. It was never going to be easy, reinventing a life from the ashes of the old one. But then, nothing worth having ever is. I'm leaving, Alex, I finally said, the decision weighing heavy but clear in my heart. Taking a step towards something new. For me. For our child. Alex's face, a mask of confusion and hurt, didn't move me as it once would have. You can't just start over, they protested, voice laced with disbelief. Not without consequences. Watch me, I replied, my voice a low promise, not of retribution, but of resolution. There was a time when the thought of leaving, of severing ties so completely, would have terrified me. Now, it was my only salvation. You might wonder, how do you rebuild when your trust has been shattered? When the person you loved most becomes the face of your deepest betrayal? The truth is, you do it one day at a time, one step after another. Leaving Alex wasn't just about escaping the pain. It was about reclaiming my own narrative, taking control of my story. The path wasn't without its thorns, of course. There were days when the weight of it all threatened to pull me under, moments when the loneliness was a tangible thing, heavy in my chest. But then I'd look at our child, so resilient, so full of life, and I'd find the strength to push forward. We're going to make it, I'd whisper into the quiet of our new home, a small apartment in a city where nobody knew our names or our story. We're going to be okay. And slowly, we were. With each new sunrise, I found pieces of myself I thought were lost forever. I started a new job, made new friends, and began to weave a life that was wholly mine. The bitterness and anger that once consumed me began to fade, replaced by something resembling peace. It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly. What Alex did was unforgivable. But it was acceptance, an understanding that holding on to the hate was only holding me back. I needed to let go, not for Alex, but for myself and our child. Do you ever think about us? Alex asked one day, a tentative voice on the other end of a much-needed phone call. It was the first time we'd spoken in months, a conversation filled with awkward pauses and unspoken words. Every day, I admitted, because it was true, but not in the way you might hope. The truth was, I thought about us as a lesson learned, a painful chapter in my life that had finally come to a close. Alex was part of my past, but they had no place in my future. As I hung up the phone, I felt a sense of closure. It wasn't the ending I had once envisioned for us, but it was an ending nonetheless. And in its wake, a new beginning was slowly taking shape, a new horizon that promised not just survival, but the chance to thrive. The path to this new horizon wasn't easy, but then, the most rewarding journeys rarely are. It was a path paved with loss, but also with hope, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there is always a way forward. You know, when you start down a path of revenge, they say it's best to dig two graves, one for your enemy and one for yourself. I used to think that was just a bleak cliche, but standing here now, looking back at the road I've traveled, I'm not so sure anymore. It's funny, in a way that's not really funny at all, how things turn out. I guess we both lost a lot, didn't we, Alex? I found myself saying out loud one night, to an empty room that no longer echoed with the life we once shared. It wasn't a question expecting an answer, it was a realization hitting home. This isn't to say I regret the path I chose. Every step, every action was a response to a deep wound, a betrayal that cut to the core of who I was. But in seeking retribution, in crafting a downfall for Alex, I hadn't realized the price I'd be paying, not in full, not until now. You were everything to me, you know? And then you weren't. It was a truth I had to face, a confession to myself more than anyone else. Alex wasn't the only one who changed. The man in the mirror was a stranger to me now, hardened by vengeance, eyes dulled by the pain of loss and the exhaustion of a battle fought too long. In the silence of reflection, I understood that the victory I sought, the downfall I orchestrated, didn't bring the satisfaction I thought it would. Instead, there was this hollow feeling, a realization that revenge didn't heal the wound. It just covered it with a scar, a reminder of the cost. I hope you find some peace, Alex. I whispered these words not out of love, but from a place of resignation, a desire to finally lay down the weapons we'd wielded against each other and move on. It was a farewell, not just to Alex, but to the chapter of my life consumed by the quest for retribution. And then, there was a moment, a turning point where I decided it was time to rebuild, not to seek further vengeance, but to seek something resembling peace. Maybe it was forgiveness, maybe not for Alex, but for myself, for allowing the betrayal to redefine who I was. The path forward wasn't clear, and the scars of the past would always be a part of me, but I recognized the need to step away from the shadows of revenge and into the light of something new, something hopeful. Here's to new beginnings, I said to no one in particular, a toast to a future unburdened by the chains of the past. It was a commitment to myself, to find a way to heal, to rediscover the parts of me lost in the turmoil and maybe, just maybe, to open my heart to the possibility of love again, in a way that was cautious but hopeful. The reflections and revelations of this journey weren't just about the end of a relationship or the consequences of actions taken in the heat of betrayal. They were about understanding the complex tapestry of human emotions, about recognizing the power of our choices, and about finding a way to move forward when it seemed like the world had stopped. So here I am, talking to you, dear reader, from a place of introspection and newfound clarity, standing at the threshold of a new horizon. The road here was paved with pain and loss, but it's time to step onto a new path, one filled with the promise of healing and the hope of new beginnings.